we are back for the first summer episode of the Power 26. Clap it up. Wesley,
Good
how we feeling?
stuff. Good. I mean, middle of the summer, we just got done with the NBA Finals. We got the Stanley Cup Finals and MLB, a lot of other stuff going on. But college basketball offseason has been really hot. There have been so many moves in the portal as there is every year nowadays with NIL, and a ton of coaching moves as well. We've got the Pac-12 to talk about, so there's plenty of college basketball to go around even in mid-June.
Yeah, there's a pretty loaded docket for a June episode. I mean, we've got conference realignment, our takes on tournament expansion, some coaching moves to get through. But we're going to start with our favorite portal moves across the country, and we'll start with you, Wesley.
Yeah, my first one is Paulius Morauskas from St. Mary's to Arizona State. Even though we are Arizona State students, I don't think it's really much bias to say that that's one of the biggest moves in all of this offseason. Randy Bennett really needed to get Morauskas to come with him from St. Mary's after he missed on Jop. Just couldn't afford to pay him what he was gonna get, and we'll probably get a little bit more into Jop too going to Gonzaga because that's another huge one. But Morauskas is gonna be really big for this team. Randy Bennett trying to rebuild the program, and that was a massive get for him.
Yeah, I mean, you need whatever you can get in the Big 12, and we saw it at St. Mary's in the West Coast forever with Morauskas is, he would just roll those guys and until it was time to play Gonzaga, he would just be a
Yeah.
production machine. And, he did have his struggles against the Zags, which is kind of the red flag for him, I think, but um I think that's a great move. My top move isn't even a transfer. It's a retention up at Utah State. Mason Falslev.
Hashtag the retention.
Yeah, the retention is huge. We're losing it. Mason Falslev staying in Logan. He's going to be a legend at Utah State once he's done with this season. And, Ben Jacobson, who we both know pretty well, Wichita State and Illinois State, respectively. We're pretty familiar with Northern Iowa. And um, Mason Falslev staying in that program, I think, speaks to Ben Jacobson. Obviously, he's a great coach, and he's had Northern Iowa, winning tournament games, and then obviously making the tournament last year as well, out of the 6th seed in the Missouri Valley. He can do it. He's a very capable coach, and it almost feels like he's been at Northern Iowa for too long with how good of a coach he is.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels surprising. And I mean, that's just such a massive move for Jacobson to get Lev to stay, a new coach, a new conference, and just the quality of player he is easily could have gone to a high major. So for him to get Lev to stay was a huge start. And like you said, I mean, he's going to be a legend around there because people know. I mean, they've seen coaches come and go, they've seen players come and go. People in Logan are going to really appreciate Lev sticking around.
Yeah, and that Pac-12, which we'll get to later, that Pac-12 is going to be pretty good. It's basically just the top class of the Mountain West, and then you're throwing in Gonzaga, Washington State, and then Oregon State, which is a team I really wanted to talk about. Justin Joyner coming over from Michigan after winning a Natty as an assistant with the Wolverines, and man, they have run the portal. Legend Smiley is the one that really shocked me from San Francisco. I expected him to go Power Four, and and he goes to Oregon State. So that's a big pickup for the Bees. And the Bees are a weird one because they were in the Elite Eight 5 years ago, but obviously they kind of got left behind in conference realignment. And it's a program that like you forget about, but you can do something special in Corvallis, and it might be going into a lesser version of the Pac-12 this next year, but I could see Oregon State making some noise in the coming years with Justin Joyner at the helm.
Yeah, when we get to that Pac-12 segment at the end, I mean, that's going to be a really big team to watch out for is Oregon State, and one that people probably forget about a lot because of that realignment situation. Another player in the port I wanted to talk about was Terrence Hill Jr. going
Mhm.
from VCU to Tennessee. Watching him against Illinois in the round of 32 last year, I mean, he's a pure scorer, and he kind of carried that team, and so I think having him in the backcourt for Tennessee is going to be massive.
Yeah, it is, and it kind of hurts us because he's going to the SEC, and le leaving the A10, which the A10 holds a special place in our
Yeah.
heart. It's got a lot of great, great programs. St. Louis, VCU, Dayton are the ones I obviously think of, but you can go deeper into like Loyola Chicago, Duquesne, Rhode Island. It's a fun conference, and it always seems like that conference that kind of just shoots itself in the foot, and like all their good teams will beat each other, and then like they'll end up with an 11 seed every year. So t tough to see a guy leave the A10 for sure, but VCU is in a good spot regardless. I think Martelli has them in a good spot. And um, for the future, I mean, St. Louis is going to be losing a bit. You obviously you still have Josh Ertz over at St. Louis, but um, VCU can kick it into gear and win a couple titles in the next years, I think. So they're in a great spot. Another transfer I wanted to talk about coming out of the Big Sky, Money Williams leaving Montana, going to Boston College. Um, Shocker, Montana guy wants to talk about the guy leaving the Grizz, but he was almost on like the false live track at UM, and I'm happy to see him go as a Bobcat. I'm very happy to see him go. He killed the conference, but he almost felt like he was on the false live track. He stayed probably one more year than he should have, and now he leaves for Luke Murray in Boston College. So the Big Sky, the Montana schools are always a contender, and it seems kind of open, but there have been some moves elsewhere. Portland State obviously re-signed Coburn, and then Canales over at Weber State could be a big pickup down in Ogden as well.
Yeah, are we going over to the coaches now, or was that just a
I
side
mean,
note?
I know you like him.
I like him. A couple more. I go back to the Missouri Valley really quick. A
Mhm.
couple with Belmont. They lose in their first game of Arch Madness, which was quite the shocker. And then they lose Tyler Lundblade, who is so huge. He's going to Tennessee as well. And then Drew Charnowski. Do you think, I mean, what kind of shape is that program going to be in after losing that game and those two players?
I don't know. I mean, they've had, good team upon good team upon good team, and there's a reason that they left the OVC. It's because it was them and Murray State that seemed like they were getting an auto bid out of the OVC every year, so they made that step up. I think they'll be fine. They're in one of the bigger markets in the Missouri Valley in Nashville, so recruiting's going to be easy, but it's going to be a new era without Casey Alexander, and there's no way around that. It's just gonna have to be something that Belmont is able to work around, and we see it every year with at least one or two teams. It's just a mass exodus after they have a good season.
Yeah. Any other guys on the portal that caught your eye?
Um, let's see. There were a couple that I was really looking at. Uh, we'll go back to ASU because we love the Sun Devils on this show, but Joel Foxwell going to Arizona State from Portland. Nationally, most people know him because he had that legendary game when Portland beat Gonzaga at the Chiles Center. But for an ASU team that's losing Mo Odom and is going to be missing that point guard presence that Odom brought. He was just invaluable to that team last year. So they're losing Mo Odom, and you kind of have to replace not just the on court, but just his leadership off court. And I think Foxwell did a good job of leading that Portland team. That, is it going to translate to the Big 12? We don't know. But I think he did a good job of that, and it makes me feel a little bit better. It's just like you're obviously going to have Morauskas there, you're going to have Dylan Shaw there, so it's going to be kind of the same culture that they had at St. Mary's, which was a winning culture. But I think Foxwell adds a new layer to it, just
Yeah.
because it's like he's just like a pure point guard. It's really fun to watch almost. It's just like he plays like your favorite point guard should play. Like
Yeah.
whatever you imagine a point guard playing like, that's Joel Foxwell.
I do think that's going to be an important thing for ASU is him at the point guard spot, just with, a completely new team. Like I said, losing Mo Odom, who was really the heart and soul of what, you know, what little ASU had. It was Mo Odom and the Mo Odom show. So to lose him, it'll definitely be big to see the point guard play in the leadership on the court and off the court.
Mhm.
Sticking with guards, another interesting one to me was Jaquan Johnson transferring from Bradley to Iowa State. It felt
Mhm.
like Bradley fans. we're always talking about him. So I'm certainly happy to see him leave Bradley.
Yeah, Iowa State is always just like there's so much land out there and there's so many mid majors out there that Iowa State is just kind of like a feeding ground for all the good guys in the area at this point. And obviously Otzelberger has built something bigger than I think we any of us expected in Ames. But um, I don't know what to think about Bradley because obviously you had a good team this year. Like that was a good basketball team. I think we can all agree. Even Redbird over here can agree that Bradley had a good basketball team this year. But I don't know what to think because I don't think they have the same like fallback as a Belmont or a Northern Iowa. You know what I mean? Like it seems like it'll take a little bit longer to make that curve again at Bradley. And I don't know. I just don't see it really working out for them right now. They didn't do enough in the off season to make me feel better about their future, I think.
Yeah, Bradley and the Missouri Valley to me is like the Brewers in the NL Central of baseball.
Mm.
Of just like they're just perpetually there. And
Mm.
they're always good, and they're not always flashy, but they always just win games, and you
Yeah.
can never count them out.
But like
And I think that's kind of what they do. And
I don't
I don't know,
know.
they're
Like they don't have the same like I guess it is kind of like the Brewers. They don't have the same financial pool to work with as some of the other programs in that conference, most likely. And they don't have the same like I wouldn't say history, but like the same reputation as maybe like a Murray State, or some of the other programs in the MVC as well. So, it seems like the losing a guy like Jaquan Johnson is gonna kind of kill him. But like you said,
yeah,
they seem to figure it out.
Bradley, yeah, Bradley, it's an interesting case because they're a team that's kind of like always good but never great, I guess. So they kind of have been overshadowed. They were overshadowed by Wichita State and Northern Iowa, and then Wichita State loses, and Northern Iowa kind of falls off. Then it's Loyola Chicago,
Mhm.
and then Loyola leaves, and I feel like Bradley almost kind of had their glory days there for a few years of like it was them and Drake up at the top.
Mm.
But now with Murray State and Belmont, they're kind of back down to like number 3 or 4 at best. And I don't know, it's not the worst place to be because like year in and year out, they are going to be a contender, but I don't think they're going to be the best team in the conference this year or many years, I guess.
So from on the court to over on the sidelines, obviously the coaching carousel in college basketball is pretty chaotic every year, but I think more so this year than usual. You've got a lot of guys from like those top tier mid majors that left. Obviously, we already mentioned Ben Jacobson and Casey Alexander, but Canales to Weber State, who we already mentioned on this show. I mean, Weber State obviously I in the Big Sky, Weber State would kind of give you just problems for a few years, and it hasn't been like that in recent years. So maybe Canales is the change. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting move. I mean, a former NBA assistant, and he
Mhm.
was an assistant with the Blazers when Damian Lillard was there. So it's kind of an interesting storyline. But it's, I don't know, maybe you being a Big Sky fan, it's a different story. For me, Weber State is a program I want to see be successful. Like, I feel like in my childhood, it was kind of they were a cool program and a cool story, but they really have been down in recent years.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean I've been okay with it, but the Big Sky I think is starting to get better or too. That's the thing. It's just like the top of the Big Sky is starting to improve, which isn't the case for every mid-major conference. You sure you haven't seen the tournament success, but like this year there were 7 teams that went into the Big Sky tournament with a chance to go and win it. And obviously, I mean, the 7 seed ended up winning it, and Idaho was pretty like they would hang with everyone night in and night out, and they still got the 7 seed, and then they obviously made a run and ended up winning the tournament. So the Big Sky is getting better, and I think Weber State felt like it was time to make a move to match that because you've got Coburn at Portland State, you've got Montana State who just had a three-peat. in the past few years, and then obviously DeCure at Montana is great. Eastern Washington is starting to find it again. Eastern Washington had a few years where they ran the conference, and now with Dan Monson, they're starting to get back. So I think that was a well-timed move for Weber State. Not just a good move, a well-timed move because, the Big Sky, you can feel everyone kind of buying into basketball in the Big Sky.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the Big Sky is a conference that's starting to get some more recognition, some more, I don't know, just not that they're getting new teams, but the teams that they have are just starting to have higher profile and a, more of a basketball conference. So that's, I think, like you said, a well-timed move for Weber State. Another big one I thought was Akron. I
Mhm.
mean, John Gross, a guy with a lot of high major experience, including at Illinois, uh, took that team to a tournament game. I'm proud to say I did not buy into all of the hype on taking them over
I
Texas
did.
Tech. Think of that.
I sure did. Yeah,
So,
Charleston is a great program in the CAA, and they've been to the tournament however many times in the past 5 years. They're always near the top of that conference in recent years, and I think that's a lateral move, or maybe even moving down for Gross still, because Akron is a great spot to be. He's been able to get a bunch of guys in recent years, and the MAC is probably a deeper conference than the CAA. And like you've got teams like Miami and Kent State and Toledo, and like I don't think the CAA exactly brings that same level. You know what I mean? Like yes, you've got Hofstra and UNC Wilmington, but I don't think it brings the same level of competitiveness. So it's definitely an interesting move. I think
I,
maybe there was monetary values involved for Gross, but I don't know what to think about that.
I mean, I feel like if I were John Gross, I would rather be at Charleston just because I feel like that's a better chance at winning a tournament game. And you kind of, I mean, I know it's a less deep of a conference. Like when you look at UNC Wilmington and Charleston and maybe Hofstra in there, those three teams, yeah, they're going to run the conference, but I think that a Charleston or a UNCW is more likely to win a tournament game than Akron is.
I mean, it's so hard to say just because it's reliant on, who do you have on your team, and that's a year by
Yeah,
year thing. But
yeah,
first of all, Charleston's as a city is probably just better to live in than Akron. You know,
probably,
you
yeah.
know, I don't think everyone's really pining to go live in Akron, Ohio. So maybe that was part of it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of see what you mean. I mean, Charleston is starting to get that notoriety as like that team in the CAA that's always just going to
Mhm.
be there. And you know, Akron is kind of that team in the MAC. So that's where I'm a little on the fence on that move for Gross's career path, but it's great for Charleston. I mean, you cannot think of a better hire, in my opinion, if you're the Charleston Cougars.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but like that race between UNC Wilmington and Charleston, I mean, it's probably going to be pretty much a two-horse race in that conference. Maybe Hofstra, other
Yeah,
teams will give them a
Hofstra
run
will
for
be
their
good
money.
again. Hofstra
Yeah,
will be good again.
but like that's always just a fun matchup of a couple of rivals, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out of that conference.
Yeah, I, it's obviously, Champ Week got a little squirrely in the CAA. You had UNC Wilmington get bounced by Campbell, like
Yeah,
off the rip at like 10 in the morning. So, you know, he, all it takes is one bad game, and we know that better than anyone. But
yeah. Belmont knows that.
yeah, Belmont
Illinois
knows that
State
real
knows that.
well. But um, I don't know. That's just if you're Akron, where do you go from here? Because obviously Travis Steele and Miami are only going up after this last season. And, you've still got a bunch of programs in that conference. Like Kent State is 3 years removed from having one of the better MAC teams I've ever seen and going to the tournament and playing Indiana. And, if you're Akron, when you have a guy like Gross that's so like intertwined with the team and then, he just pulls the rug from under you, where do you go from here? Because they kind of just have to keep up now with Miami.
Yeah, they they go with Dustin Ford, who I feel like is probably. I mean, maybe the obvious move was an assistant, I believe. Uh, and he had been with Groves. I'm trying to look this at Ohio, Illinois, and Illinois as well. So I'd been around John Groves for a while. So maybe I guess they're figuring, this is a guy who's been with John Groves for all this time. Maybe he can step up and just be the next John Groves. You know what I mean? But I think at worst it's a minor downgrade.
Yeah,
I mean, at best it's a minor
it has to be. I mean, like there's no way around it. You know, you're
downgrade.
losing John Gross, probably one of the best mid-major coaches in the country. Like it's probably going to be a downgrade of some sort. But I don't think they did a horrible job with that search either. So, they'll live. Like they'll still definitely be near the top in the MAC pretty consistently. We're not paying Zoom for anything. But we're back. We alluded to this a little bit earlier in the episode, but I think Justin Joyner is a great hire for Oregon State. He's already made so many moves in the portal, and you're picking up a lot of good basketball teams in the new Pac-12. You know, you've got obviously Gonzaga, the big fish, and then Utah State. You know, Colorado State has had some good teams in recent years. Uh, so I think it's a great move for Oregon State to have a guy that, one, knows how to win, and two, is ready to win right now.
Yeah, I mean that's what they need. It was kind of a down year too, where they had no conference and they were just kind of in no man's land. But now is really the time for that program that is capable, to put the pedal to the metal here and try to win the Pac-12. And we'll get into that later. But I mean, maybe even get an at-large bid in that conference.
And like this is a team that just got done playing in the West Coast semifinals with Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and Santa Clara. So like it's not like they've been bad. You know, they haven't been the, the best that they've ever been per se, but like, they came in and beat ASU in Tempe and like they got good wins under their belt in Corvallis this past year. And, I think it was time to move on from Wayne Tinkle, especially now that you're going into a new conference. It almost feels like a new era. Um, with all these teams joining the new Pac-12. So, I think it's perfect timing. I think it's a great hire, and I think Oregon State did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I want to go back to ASU a little bit because we haven't even mentioned Randy Bennett yet in this segment, and that's obviously a
Mm,
massive one.
yeah.
Uh,
Mm,
he,
yeah, it's going to hurt St. Mary's
is
a lot.
yeah, a lot. As good of a hire as Arizona State could have possibly made, I think. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't think of a candidate out there that ASU was realistically going to get better than Randy Bennett.
Yeah. Um, Obviously for ASU, I think that's a great hire. But when you're looking at St. Mary's, they're going with Mickey McConnell, who was Randy Bennett's assistant up at St. Mary's. So they're sticking with a guy that was within the program. And I think that's smart just because Randy Bennett was there for so long. And St. Mary's, you've got Gonzaga leaving. And like, obviously that sucks for quad one opportunities. That sucks for, seeding wise. You're probably not going to get as good of a seed coming out of a conference without Gonzaga. Um, but, you know, outside of Santa
Pretty
Clara,
automatic, big.
they should dominate, in
Yeah.
my opinion. They really should dominate that conference. So I, I think Mickey McConnell is the right move in that situation. And I think St. Mary's didn't overthink it because they could have definitely overthought that pick and been like, oh man, we have to fill Randy Bennett's shoes. Since it's like, no, you don't. All you have to
Yeah.
do is just keep the same winning culture in place. And I think St. Mary's did that. And, obviously Herb Sendek's still going to be down at Santa Clara. And I think they've got more good teams in the future. But, I'm good on St. Mary's for not trying to like be the heroes in a sense and like go try and catch a big fish. They just stuck with Mickey McConnell. I think that'll pay off.
Yeah, I think trying to have any sense of continuity is a good idea. So I think
Mm.
sticking with the same culture, a guy who was an assistant under Randy Bennett is big. And speaking of assistants under Randy Bennett, his new associate head coach was Rick Croy from Cal Baptist. That's another big
Mm.
one. We thought Croy could have been a target for ASU for the head coaching position. So
Yeah,
big
I
for Arizona
mean,
State,
we
to get
really
him.
did.
Yeah.
It was an interesting situation because like, it almost suggested that like Croy would rather take an assistant spot at a Power Four school than a head coaching spot at like a rising mid-major program, and Cal Baptist was getting better, but I think the reason he left in the end is because the WAC is dying,
Yeah.
and it's falling apart. So I think that's probably the reason that he left. But it almost felt like a move to like kind of have like a replacement for Randy Bennett because, Randy Bennett's probably in his last few years of coaching. He's on the older side for college basketball coaches. And, when you have a guy like Rick Croy who is on the younger side, proven success at Cal Baptist, and also you can recruit his four-star son over from St. Mary's, like,
Yeah.
that helps,
Yeah.
obviously. But um, I don't know. I think that's a good move. But now, if you're Cal Baptist, and I think a lot of schools in the WAC, but Cal Baptist specifically, you lose Daniels, you lose Croy, and like Utah Valley lost Jackson Holcomb to the Utes, and I think every school in the WAC, because Utah Valley did have some good years, and Cal Baptist obviously had a great team last year, but I think all those schools are going to take a pretty pretty downward spiral after losing their conference.
Yeah. Cal Baptist. We got Kyle Getter, the assistant from Notre Dame. I really don't
Mm,
know much about him. I feels like maybe a move betting on himself a little bit, I guess.
mm,
Just because of like what you said that the WAC is not a great place to be right now. That program loses Rick Croy and could, kind of be on a downhill swing. So he's kind of betting on himself that he's going to be able to prove us wrong and really turn things around and, make a name for himself as a head coach.
yeah, and like you know, Cal Baptist almost strikes me as like a GCU type of situation. Like they were D2, like 10 years ago, and then they just
Yep.
went D1 recently and made their first tournament last year. And now, Wesley's gone. But now you've got a pretty good support base around you. Like their fans traveled really well to San Diego, and um, it's a pretty good fan base. It's a pretty good administration for athletics, and you've got a lot going for you at Cal Baptist. So I am interested to see where they go from there because that team was so fun to watch last year, and I hope they can replicate that.
Yeah. It's a program you wish the best for it. I feel like it could really go either way. They could surprise people and just kind of keep going on that upward trajectory, or it could kind of fall apart without Rick Croy. I think that's a team to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
The
So
other
with that.
coaches, all right, we want to head over to the Pac-12.
I think that's all we had for that. And with that, we go into a bit of a case study that we've been talking over. We've mentioned a bunch of Pac-12 teams today on the episode, but Wesley, we've got a question. Obviously, we're named the Power 26, and the Pac-12, back in its golden days was surely a power conference. There's no
Yep.
debate there. Now it's being rebuilt, a lot of good programs, but I wanted to ask you. Is the Pac-12, the new Pac-12, a power conference?
That's such a hard question. I don't have a super passionate answer either way, but I'm inclined to say yes, just because it has been, and they did keep a couple of well, power conference or a couple of former Pac-12 teams, and then they bring in like all the teams they've brought in are really the cream of the crop from mid majors. I mean, the Mountain West is hardly a mid major or was before losing all of those teams. So I mean, when you have
Hmm.
SDSU and Boise State and Colorado State, I know those teams have been mid majors, but like barely.
Hmm.
And then especially
Yeah,
Gonzaga.
I mean,
And I know you like to say Gonzaga's not a mid major.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's just like you're taking Gonzaga out of the West Coast Conference, which the West Coast was a mid-major conference, but Gonzaga is such an exception in my eyes. But you're taking them and you're putting them in a conference with some of the best options you had realistically to join a conference with in the West Coast, and now you have like Oregon State and Washington State, and the talk was always like, when's Gonzaga going to join the Pac-12, and then the Pac-12 fell apart.
Yeah.
So. now you're looking at the next best thing you can do down the list is you're joining basically like a super Mountain West. It's like the six most successful Mountain West programs, and then you've also got Washington State, Oregon State, Texas State. So I, you know, it's gonna take a hit on our marketing because we might have to change the name, but I agree. I think the Pac-12, while it isn't like I don't think it's gonna be grouped in with like the Big 12 and the Big 10 and the SEC a lot. I do think it's better than the Mountain West, and
Yeah.
it's better than, like the A10 and the Missouri Valley and the best mid-major conferences. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on this one. Like, I'm not like really swayed either way per
Yeah.
se, but I think I'm leaning towards yes.
And I think also a thing that comes down to is I would expect teams in the new Pac-12 to compete better with power conference teams than I would expect, like Missouri Valley or an A10 team to compete with the teams in the Pac-12. I think there's less of a disparity between the Pac-12 and the other power conferences than there is between the Pac-12 and the mid-major because I mean you would easily put this Pac-12 conference up against any mid-major conference in the country, I think.
Yeah, I am so interested to see how Texas State fares.
Yeah. That's
Obviously, I,
just an
I think
under
it's I
the
think it's more
radar.
of a football move,
Yeah.
to be honest, because like we saw their football team, they were actually pretty good,
All
and they
right.
were pretty consistently good in the Sun Belt. But even when you look at it from that angle, it's just like it seems like they're kind of in over their heads, and basketball
Yeah.
especially.
I think they'll definitely find themselves as kind of a bottom feeder and initially in that conference, but I think it could be a good move long term, like because that's a team. I think that's a program not just in basketball but across athletics. So we've kind of had a respect for as mid major that really goes under the radar. So I I don't hate the move for them. I think they will. There will be growing pains, but I think it could pay off eventually. I think eventually we could see Texas State as a well known, name as a high major.
That would be kind of insane,
I
just
I, I don't
because
think it's
they were
that
in the
like
Sun
out
Belt
there.
and they were just like another Sun Belt team forever, and now like you put them in the Pac-12, and if they're I mean if they're able to do it, they're able to do it, and they're definitely
Yeah.
going to have more resources to make it happen. It's just a matter of are they going to be able to beat Gonzaga on a regular basis?
I think not for a
Definitely
while,
not at
and
first, but
especially
like
in football,
give
I
it
think
5 years. Like,
yeah, they'll compete better in
mm,
football too. And I think that the
I
different
agree.
sports are
The
not totally, independent of each other. Like you get a good reputation as an athletics program that can help all of, your athletic department
mhm.
just to become a well-known program and a high major eventually.
Yeah, I like what you said there. It's just like I feel like football they're going to hang better, and the new Pac-12. I do think obviously Gonzaga not having a football team is going to help this argument, but I do think it's going to be a way better basketball conference than it is a football conference.
Yeah,
I feel like Boise State is, thanking their lucky stars that they're going to be in this conference because they're going to get some good wins along the way, but they're probably going to win the conference a lot in
yes,
football. But in basketball, it's going to have that depth. And I think that's kind of where my argument comes in. It's just like, yeah, it's probably better than all the other mid-majors. So
yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll have to see that play out because that's an interesting case for sure. But
Well,
outside of
going
that, conference realignment is just like flipped on its head. Like I don't even know where to start.
it, yeah. I mean, it's just everywhere. Uh, I don't know. Me neither. I was
I
thinking about the West
I,
Coast,
I
like
think the Big West is yeah, I think the Big West is probably a loser out of all of this because like, I think they're losing UC Irvine, which has kind of been their golden goose in recent years,
where's
and
UC Irvine going?
you know, the, let's see. Big West coaching changes. I feel like, or Big West realignment. We're going to a booth review on yeah. So they're picking up Cal Baptist and Utah Valley. Oh, not UC Irvine. It's going to be UC San Diego. So effective July 2027, UC San Diego and UC Santa Barbara are leaving the Big West and joining the West Coast Conference. So um, obviously this won't apply this year, and they'll have Cal Baptist and Utah Valley from, the aftermath of the WAC. Uh, so this next year for the Big West is going to be awesome because they're going to have basically their full strength conference and then Cal Baptist and Utah Valley on top of that. But after that, I mean, I think it's kind of on the rest of the conference to keep up with UC Irvine in a sense. And it's just like, Hawaii is leaving for the Mountain West for good as well at some point, and um, I don't know. It leaves UC Irvine in a place where like you kind of want to move because obviously, money talks, but also they're going to win a lot on the basketball court at some point
Yeah,
there.
that that'll be, I mean, interesting for the West Coast Conference because they're taking a couple of major hits with Gonzaga leaving and then Randy Bennett leaving, not just Randy Bennett, but also Paulius Morauskas, like their program. Not that it's going to be dead, but like it's going to take a
It's going to be a
step
lot of
back.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
UC Irvine is, I think, a huge get for them because, like you said, I mean, they've been probably the best team in the Big West overall in recent years. And like that's a good team. That's a team that can compete with St. Mary's and win tournament games, I think.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely interesting that UC San Diego and UC Santa Barbara went before UC Irvine.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a FCS to FBS situation where like, you want to compete for championships like every year and like you've got your good team, but I don't see why they wouldn't leave that conference, right? Like it's turning into like, they're picking up the good WAC schools and then it's just going to be like all the Cal States and like UC Riverside and I don't know. It seems like UC Irvine has a lot more to them than that, but
Yeah. I
I don't
definitely
know.
think that. I mean,
I don't know. That'll be
like
interesting.
it could be a situation where it's just like we're going to get an automatic bid every year, but how far is that going to get you? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
going to get you
Yep.
maybe one tournament win.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
We've saved it for last, but I do think we need to probably address tournament expansion on this show. We both hate it. I think it might be the dumbest thing the NCAA has done outside of, Brendan Sorsby, but
yeah.
the
Well, that to be fair wasn't really the NCAA's fault.
yeah, everyone's actually siding with them, which is rare.
Yeah,
But the the tournament expansion from a mid-major standpoint is just like, yes, if you have like an Indiana State from a few years ago, then like they're getting in and they're playing a tournament game. And we saw it in the first four with Miami, Ohio this year. Like those are fun. And like those are like fun looks for the country at teams like Miami, Ohio from this year. And they can obviously beat power conference teams in those games too. But I just don't see a world where it's going to turn into like three new mid-majors in the tournament a year. Like it's just going to be Georgia Tech
in Auburn,
getting in like a
like
losing record and like Auburn and whatever team got 14th in the SEC.
yeah,
So
it's just
I'm not sold on the idea of access yet.
I don't think. I mean, that's clearly just kind of a pretext for wanting to get more bad power conference teams in to make more money. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I mean that's certain. Just money is a problem in the NCAA right now. Obviously, NIL has gotten out of control, and the Brendan Sorsby situation. Even though that's not necessarily the NCAA's fault, it's certainly an issue that needs to be addressed. And that's just another example of a
Mhm.
pretty greedy decision. I mean, the tournament was probably the most perfect thing in sports, and just for them to mess with it is definitely frustrating.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know. It seems like you're not taking the fans into account, but you're also not taking the smaller schools into account with that decision. It's just like you're going to make it seem like you are. And obviously, you've got guys like the SoCon commissioner coming out saying, "Oh, we support expansion." It's just like, shut up. You're just trying to get more buy games for your schools against the SEC. Like
Yeah.
that's not you don't believe that. It's not going to turn into a bunch of SoCon schools going to the tournament. Like what year in the past 10 years have the selection committee had a SoCon team in the first four out or the next four out come
Yeah.
selection Sunday?
Yeah. I mean, when
It doesn't
the
happen.
first four or the next four out, you might see a mid-major or two. It's mostly just bad power conference teams, and that's what it's going to be.
Mhm. Like it would have been like Oklahoma, Auburn, we're talking about like Cal
ASU would
in
have
the
probably made
tournament.
it,
Yeah,
which is
Arizona State would have been a
ridiculous.
bubble
We can tell you we
team.
have seen this team in person that last year's team in person many times. That team should not be a tournament team under any circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, if you got the chance to watch that Arizona State Iowa State game at the Big 12 tournament, you would know like that it was one of the worst performances I've ever seen a power conference team put up at a conference tournament, and that team might have been in the tournament. So I,
Yeah.
I it's just seems like so off. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. Access is great, but it just seems so off, and the format is so bad. Now you're gonna have all the 16s and two 15s playing play-in games, and it's just like
And
this
we
isn't
talk
it.
about it a little bit. It's going to kill the
Hmm.
possibility of a
Yeah,
16-1 upset. Like,
it is.
I don't know if we'll ever see that again because it
Like,
takes,
Siena's never hanging with Duke if they have to play a team before that.
yeah,
They
what,
ran
two days
the
earlier?
same five guys for 40 minutes, and it's just like that's not happening. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I already think the first four should be gone and they should just stick to 64, but this is just getting worse and worse, in my opinion. So,
yeah.
not a lot we can do out of it.
It's
In the
just,
final moments of the show, is is there anything else you'd like to get off your chest, like a team that you like, or maybe some more thoughts on expansion or whatever?
I guess a final thought on expansion is just that it feels like you're allowing the novelty of the tournament to wear off. The bigger the
Yeah.
tournament gets, the less significant it is when you make the tournament. The less people care to watch tournament games. I
Mhm.
mean, you got, mid majors that'll hang a banger, whoa, hang a banner for just an appearance in the NCAA tournament. Now,
Yeah.
when we have 156 teams in the tournament, nobody's going to care.
Yeah. And like John Rothstein's main argument, which I really liked, is like you'd have these days where like there would be important bubble games in like power conferences, and then like you'd have like Santa Clara playing St. Mary's. That's an important bubble game in this past year, and with tournament expansion, those games are going to be mean nothing
Yeah.
in most cases. It's just going to be like the first round of the SEC tournament is going to be more than the SEC championship in some
Yeah.
cases, and that's just not right. So I don't know. I don't like it, but it might have gotten Wichita State in this past year, which I would have appreciated. It might have gotten ASU in this past year, but neither of those teams were tournament caliber teams. So
Uh,
it's lame.
yeah.
It's lame. It's kind of a downer to end the episode on, but it's kind of an upper that we're even recording a Power 26 in the first place. For
Yeah.
Wesley Stombaugh, I'm Angus Trangmo. We've got about 20 weeks until college basketball comes back.
Not
We
that
can all
anybody's
wait.
counting.
We can all wait together.
Yep.
We can all wait together. We're starting to look into the schedule, see where we
Yep.
might end up in November and then into conference play. And you know, who knows? We could end up in Greenville, South Carolina at Furman University for all we know right now. So,
That's the hope.
um, yeah, that is the hope. That'd be
At
great.
Furman.
You know, any school, any mid-major school that wants us, we are welcome us with open arms. We are in.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are in. So that'll do it for us. It is so good to be back. And yeah, like I said, 20 weeks. We're almost there.
Yep. Getting closer
Almost there.
every day.
Every day. Closer every day. Yeah.